Welcome or welcome back to Ashley Makes. For today's video I told myself, let's get real. And here I am. I'm a professional beginner when it comes to this YouTube stuff. I'm quite the professional in watching YouTube, but I'm still a beginner in making YouTube videos. And if I only learned one thing from binge watching Casey Neistat's vlog, it's this. Let your audience know where you currently are. So here we go. Let me show you where I'm right now and where I make all this creative stuff I'm going to show you on this channel. This is my office where I edit all my videos. This room used to be my son's bedroom. After he moved out, it sat empty for quite a while. Or rather, it turned into a storage room. I didn't bother repainting. The color is fine. I also didn't buy anything new except for a network cable, since my office moved from the ground floor to the first floor. Everything else was already somewhere in the house. I just rearranged it and gave some pieces a little makeover with a fresh coat of paint. And now I take you to my studio. Let's go! Before I dive into the details, let me give you a quick overview of the room as it is right now. I didn't plan on tidying up too much because I wanted to keep it as authentic as possible. But after my first round of footage looked a little too messy, I did declutter just a tiny bit. I'll take you on a full tour of every corner in a minute, but first, let me share the story of this art studio. For 20 years, I was self-employed as a photographer, and this very room used to be my photo studio. I actually started crafting in a completely different space. This room right here. It's tiny compared to the space I just showed you. For years, this pink and purple dream was my daughter's bedroom. When she switched rooms, I turned it into a small creative space for painting and crafting. This is where I poured the moon that became my little universe I showed you a few weeks ago. But before long, I had completely outgrown the space. When I closed my photography business in 2023, I no longer needed a photo studio. So the idea of turning it into an art space completely took over my mind. And what you've just seen is the result of many months of hard work. Now, let's turn back time and I'll show you how I got to where I'm now. It took me about 7 months to figure out the right setup for this studio, or at least what works for me and my daughter right now. Let's be real, it will probably change again, because I can't resist the urge to tweak things. I also have plans to redo the old closets at some point. The green shelf? I can live with it. It's a relic from my daughter's kawaii phase. And someday, I'll finally take down those backdrops from the ceiling. But for now, they are staying right where they are. All right. Let's start the tour. The entrance area is marked by one of the old closets. Next to it, I've got this old IKEA metal shelf, perfect for tools and random stuff I have no idea where else to put. To make it more functional, I'll build a wooden frame to sit on top and edit casters underneath. Now it's mobile and easy to move around. Behind that, you'll see my DIY drying rack. I actually filmed the whole making process and plan to turn it into a video. So let me know if you'd be interested in watching that beautiful trial and error journey. The best part? It's collapsible when not in use, aka when it's empty, which let's be honest, is rare. It folds down slim enough to tuck away into a corner. While you were watching the time-lapse, I did a little last-minute decluttering just to make things look a tiny bit more organized. So this table is clean now. Now let's talk storage. On the top shelf, I keep cardboard. Below that, packaging paper. Next, the good paper, so paper I haven't dared to use yet. And at the very bottom, a collection of unfinished pieces. Every now and then I flip through to see if I feel like finishing anything. Here are 2 examples. In the gap on the left, I stash paper for collaging, like wrapping paper and other fun papers. I'll be honest, I'm far from having a perfectly organized system. It's still a work in progress. Eventually, I'll figure out where everything belongs. For now, this closet is home to most of my acrylic pouring supplies, my gel plates, and a mix of new canvases and canvases I like to upcycle. Speaking of gel plates, I've actually never owned a commercial one. Every single gel plate I've ever used was DIY. At first, I wasn't sure if buying a real gel plate was worth it. I mean, I tend to switch up my creative obsessions kind of every 2 weeks. So, instead of dropping money on something I might lose interest in, I made my own to test the waters. And what can I say? Love at first print. I've been hooked ever since. Right now, I have 3 different plates in rotation. But let's be real, that number is only going up. I got this beautiful sideboard for free. Rescued it right before it was about to be thrown away. And honestly, I love everything about it. The design, the color, the storage space. Absolute perfection. That being said, I still have no idea what to put in. For now, it's mostly empty except for a growing stash of collage scraps. The drawers hold some of my handmade stencils for gel printing, printed papers for future projects, and a little collection of colored tissue paper. On top, I keep my go-to lever cutter, and this wooden sled, it's waiting to become a picture rail. Eventually. Oh, and this trolley? Not mine. It belongs to my daughter. As I mentioned, she also uses a studio. She's a super talented artist, way more skilled than I am. This table was one of the first pieces in the studio. The moment I saw the concept for this kind of work table, I knew I had to have one. I found the Kallax shelves and the matching drawer inserts on eBay Kleinanzeigen. It's the German version of Craigslist. My only rule? Keep it as cheap as possible. In the end, the whole thing, including the wheels, cost me around 100 euros, plus a few weeks of waiting until I had all pieces together. The tabletop itself is made from wooden slats I already had. There used to be the set flooring in my old studio. I glued them together, framed the edges with 4 solid wooden strips, and all in all, the work surface is a solid 1.5 by 2 meters. This table is the heart of the room. Watching the footage really made me realize, again, that I have way too much stuff. But since I can't bring myself to throw things away and I still have space, it's probably not going to change anytime soon. I won't go into details about everything in these drawers, since most of it is pretty self-explanatory. But if you've got any questions, just ask. Alright, let's move on to the area where I do most of my work. It's my little corner. Tucked in here is an old IKEA plastic tub and a self-made rack that works perfectly for acrylic pouring. These poured paintings are actually the result of a big pouring medium test I did 3 years ago. It really bugged me that I was nailing some pouring techniques but failing miserably at others. So I did some research and found out that not every pouring medium works for every technique. Luckily, I filmed the whole test back then, so I might turn it into a video at some point. And here's all my acrylic paint. Yep. Most of it is pretty cheap stuff, but as I've said before, I don't feel the need to buy the most expensive supplies when I'm just trying out a new technique. And let's talk about gold. I love gold, which is why I have way too many tubes of it. I tested different gold paints from various brands and my clear winner is this one, Royal Flash. Technically it's bronze, but on paper it looks almost like gold leaf. I love it. And yeah, this one is definitely on the pricier side, but so worth it. At the end of 2019, I started a big painting, knowing it was going to be a long-term project. So I treated myself to this box of 60 acrylic paints by Arteza. They are pretty solid. The pigmentation is great, and since they are heavy body paints, I can thin them down a lot if needed. They've lasted me all the way till today, so no complaints here. These cheap organizers serve as my water station since I do multiple rinses while painting. This box holds all my watercolor supplies. Again, from cheap to expensive, a little bit of everything. This starter set in a tin was my first attempt at watercolors since I had never used them before. And yeah, it's totally fine for beginners. As I started experimenting, I realized that watercolors probably won't become my absolute favorite medium, but I still want to explore them more. So at some point, I treated myself to a few pans from White Nights and Sennelier. Okay, more acrylic paints here, neon colors and some cheap ones just for testing, acrylic sprays, pigment powders, even more acrylic paint, because clearly I can't have enough. Some colored pencils, a set of water-soluble wax crayons and oil pastels, regular color and neons, because, well, of course, neon. I just love neon. Here my self-made wet palettes, mixing trays, a few sketchbooks and my extra large trash bin, because I can make a lot of mess. Oh, and I almost forgot these little containers. The bottom one holds some of my daughter's lino cuts and the top one pure, shiny, sparkly goodness, aka all kinds of embellishments I can't resist hoarding. Next stop, this trolley, where I keep all my self-made stamps from the past month. Let me show you what's inside. If you're interested in how I made them, check out my 2 videos on this topic. I've linked them in the top right corner and added the links in the description as well. The middle shelf holds all kind of tape and the bottom shelf is stocked with supplies for future experiments and DIY. The story behind this board will be part of one of my upcoming videos. As you'll see in a moment, my side of the table has a glass top, great for creating but not ideal for presentations. That's why I use this wooden board as a backdrop. But since I don't always love the yellowish tone of the main side, I created this collage on the back for some extra variety. Whew, almost done. This is pretty exhausting. Okay, on the top of this closet, I added a shelf that holds all my markers. Alcohol ink, watercolor and acrylic markers. From budget-friendly to higher quality, it's all in there. This next shelf speaks for itself. Just a bunch of random stuff. And down here I keep all my glues, pouring mediums, varnishes and some fancy texture pastes. Here is some canvas on a roll, which I can use for normal paint, but also for my inkjet printer. Nearby are some sketchbooks and Bristol paper for gel printing. I keep a bundle of stretcher bars and some acrylic skins in the right-hand part of this closet. This is where I do most of my creative stuff. As I said, I've put a glass surface on top of this table. It's from IKEA and I have it for over 20 years now. I've also got a magazine organizer on the left side of the Kallax, where I keep a bunch of papers and a cutting mat. I recently reorganized my workspace. I love wooden boxes. And until a few weeks ago, I had all my frequently used tools organized in wooden boxes. Here's a little time lapse of how it used to be. Then I discovered these great turntables, and even though I love the old boxes, they had to make way for the rondels, because these are simply much more practical and convenient. I still got one wooden box left that holds all my spatulas, crafting knives, rulers and my torch. I use the tools you can see here regularly, so I always have them on the table. But if I ever need more space, I can store them quickly and easily. The spray bottles now only contain water. I won't get into all the details about the tools because I'm sure you are already familiar with them. And that's all for today, I guess. But wait, I've got a special guest who wants to say hello, so don't switch off. Oh, okay, he wants to say hello as well. If you spotted anything you'd like to have a further look on, just put it in the put it in the comments. If you enjoyed this little journey, please give this video a like, and so I know I do more of that creative stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching and bye.